Dan Casey update?
We've had an X-ray. It doesn't look as severe as what we thought it was. I think the initial feedback was there's no fracture, so it now sort of comes down to whether there's muscle, ligament damage, whatever, round about his ankle. So physios had him in yesterday, we spoke to him yesterday, and then we're kind of looking at a situation where we'll need to probably get a scan on top of the X-ray we've had to see if there's any other damage, but certainly didn't look as bad as what we first thought, obviously with the reaction and the medical attention. So that's a positive in a sense, but I can't give you a time. He's going to be out for a time, but I just don't know exactly how long that's going to be. But my initial feeling probably now is that it's not going to be as long as we first thought.
Right. Anyone else from midweek?
Callum Butcher came off. Obviously, we brought him on at half time, and he felt his calf, so he had to come off the pitch as well. Which is a blow for us. Obviously a guy that's important to the group, and it just kind of adds. Dan Casey, Callum Butcher are two big players for the football club, and they're another two added to the players that we already had missing.
What's it looking like for Callum?
Again, a bit early to say. We probably need to get that scan again just to define how bad the damage is, but I would suggest to you that if Callum Butcher comes off the park, it's going to be enough to keep him out for at least a few weeks anyway.
It's already adding to your troubles in terms of the squad.
Yeah, well, I think we've probably, actually had a look at this, I think we've probably got the smallest squad anyway, a number of senior players in the division. And then when you add Callum Butcher, Dan Casey, suspension of Harry Payton, Paul McGinn, Lennon Miller, Pap Swarry, and you start to go through all these guys, then it certainly doesn't give you your troubles to seek. It's not an excuse, it just seems to be that when you're in such a poor run that all these things tend to mount up. But I'm still a believer that you have to find the answers, and you still have to try and galvanise yourself from within and who's available, and we really just at this minute in time have to put our focus purely on that, exactly who's available to play, who can impact a game of football on a Saturday, which we face St Johnstone, and we just have to make sure that that's what we're centred around, that's what we're focusing on.
In the content, sorry.
Just one quick one. Team news, Paul McGinn still having to wait?
Yeah. We'd sent him for that update or the check, and I think that initially they'd said 6 weeks post operation, and that was still wearing the mask. They didn't quite feel that he was in a position to take part in the game on Tuesday, so Paul still sits with that original timeline, unfortunately.
In the context of the season, Stuart, how big a game is this?
No, it's massive. It's massive. I'm not going to patronise anybody by indicating that it doesn't mean something to us. But what I need to say is that I think you have listened to me often enough that mindset and that mentality's been there. Even when you've went on a run, I think we went St Mirren, Rangers, Celtic was the three. When we get to Livingston at the end of that run, I can't tell you that I was focused anymore. I can't tell you that I was working less then, and I'm working harder now. That we weren't trying to get the absolute best out of the players then, because that's absolutely the truth. We've been working incredibly hard. I think when you lose any game of football, you always have your mindset on that next win and that next result that you can get, and that's where we've been. So I think I'd be patronising people, I'd be patronising supporters and everybody else in this room here if I started to say that we're going to try really, really hard to win this game. We've been trying really hard to win every single game. I believe I've been meticulous and really detailed in how I want that to look and how I want that to work, and trying to work off a similar type of plan, or exactly the same sort of plan, if I'm being honest, that had brought us results and victories. So no, I'd be cheating people if I sat here and said that I'm going to try even harder for this game, because I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if I can put any more hours in. I don't know if the staff can. I think what we need to do is ultimately just get it right in a 90 minutes of football. We need to go and give our supporters something that they actually believe in. We need to go and give our travelling support that were up there on Tuesday, and the people that watched it, or the people that followed it on the radio, or whatever that might have looked like, we need to offer up some sort of an apology, and the best way to do that from my mindset and sort of my integrity is that you have to go and empty your tank on Saturday. As simple as that. It's about stripping this whole thing back. It's about putting your body in a line for the football club. It's about running every step that you possibly can, and most importantly for me, it's making better decisions. It's not not sort of sinking into your shell and feeling sorry for yourself. You're going to have to put yourself out there. If somebody's not happy still on Saturday because of the performance on Tuesday or because of the run you're on, you know what, we're all in football. We all wanted this, we all wanted to be a part of it, and sometimes that doesn't look good and it doesn't sound good, and people go on your case and people want to come after you and there's personal attacks. We know what this world looks like with social media and people sitting in stands, but you have to be big enough to stand up to that. Yeah, you can't make an excuse. You can't then start telling us that you're feeling a little bit of knock and a little bit of strain, and you can't begin to tell us that that's something that's having an impact on you. I've been brought up in a world that you take that, and I've had plenty over my time, and I think you just have to stand up and be counted. And you know what, you need to be able to look yourself in the mirror at the end of the game on Saturday night and tell everybody that you have given your all, and that's all I can ever ask, and that's all I've ever looked from myself.
How are you getting through those personal attacks, and how do you intend to get through this period?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Or the players?
You.
Me, it has no effect on me whatsoever, I have to say. You know, social media, news reports, all these different things, and again, this is where I'm really consistent. I've never read any of them. I genuinely have. I'm a guy that's never been on social media in my life. I'm a guy that doesn't tend to listen or take influence from what other people say. I'm very, very strong-willed and very, very strong-minded myself, and that's what I've been throughout. You know, that's not just something since I came into Motherwell. I'd been that for 12 years or more at Ross County as well. When I was there, I was that as a player. And again, it's just my way of thinking. It's just the world that I live in. I'm not somebody that believes in, you know, trying to influence my own life or somebody else's life by social media. I get the merits, I understand it. I get that people will be completely disgruntled with myself and with the players at this minute in time. But I can assure each and every person that there's nobody puts more pressure on themselves than me. You know, somebody shouting at me and calling me all sorts and giving me abuse isn't going to motivate me any more than what I already try and do each day in my life. So that doesn't have an impact on me, but I need to urge that to the players as well. You know, genuinely, I've been asked a couple of times in the last couple of days, how are you? How are you yourself? I'm absolutely fine. I genuinely am. I want to do this job. I want success for this football club, and as I've always said, the one thing that I've probably got more than talent is fight. That's what I've generally had. So it's my job to try and instill that in the players and make sure that they come in with a similar mindset to myself. And I think if you do that, I'm not saying that you try and shield yourself from everything and you try and sweep it under the carpet. It's there, of course it's there, but I think it's just that. I just think it's that strong mind to make sure that you come out the other side of it, and if you don't, you're able to look yourself in the mirror and say that you know there wasn't anything else you could put into it. And again, hopefully that isn't just to appease people. It's just you've asked me the question and I'm giving you a view on what my mindset is. And you know what, there's people at bigger clubs with bigger pressure and all the rest of it than me that have to maybe listen to 50,000, 60,000 fans sort of baying for blood and all the rest of it. It's football, that's what it is. But you know, again, I'll stress that if I wasn't prepared to accept that or take it, then I wouldn't be doing the job.
You know how it works, Stuart? How big a game is this for you personally?
Yeah, again, I know you need to ask the question quite obviously, quite clearly. The same as the rest of the games, but what happens is stories build, and you know that run increases. So everybody starts to make up their own narrative. Again, I'm not a stupid guy. I'm not silly. There's certainly been no conversations surrounding my future at the football club. But again, I'm not silly. I understand if you don't start winning games at any football club, be it Motherwell or anywhere across Scotland and beyond, that you find yourself under pressure. So yeah, that's a thing. I think if you sit and you worry about that every 2 seconds, then that consumes you and it stops you from doing your job. So I can genuinely tell you it's not something that's running through my head. What will be in football, and as we always keep saying and have done for a long time, the only way you ever get to control that's by winning games of football, because in this country we are so knee-jerk. We don't sort of strip layers back and look at definitive pictures of, you know, whether it's budget, size of squad, injuries, all that type of thing. We don't look at it. We don't. It's not something we take into consideration. All we consider in this country, and in football in general, is what are the results. And again, I accept that. That's absolutely fine. And the only way you find yourself safe in a job and people celebrating you and people being happy and patting you in the back is if you win games of football. So that formula is very, very simple. The other aspects that I take into account, the other aspects I take note of, probably don't stand with most people. So that's where again I have to probably shunt that to one side and just say that it is based on a result. It's based on a game of football.
Last one from me. You said there's been no conversation with the hierarchy. do you believe you're going to get given the time to get through this?
It's not my place to say. It's not my place to say. What's the outcome of a game of football on Saturday? What's the result on Saturday? What happens beyond that's never going to be in my control to make the decision. All I can assure everybody is that I'm 100% here fighting at this football club. I want to do the job. I think I've shown to everybody through a period of time that we have had a formula that works and we have had a formula that wins games. That probably sounds a bit remiss at this point. It probably sounds a wee bit, trying to deviate away from the actual facts and where we sit just now. So I accept that, I take that. But I can 100% assure people that I want to do the job and I want to do it to the best of my ability. Ultimately, the questions that you'll ask, I know you have to, and I know everybody else wants an answer for that and everybody wants a story. But there has been no conversation surrounding that other than the fact that I'll go and keep doing what I'm doing until such time somebody tells me that there's a change and how much can influence it. Try and win a game of football and try and get yourself on a run, and that will start to probably point the finger of doubt somebody else's direction.
Stuart, you had quite strong words for the players after the game on Tuesday. How have they reacted to that?
Do you know what? Whether my words were strong, I don't know how strong they were. I think we'd obviously said that it was a poor performance, and for that, I think what my words were is I put my hand up and I take full responsibility for it. But I think that they are an honest enough bunch. They are an honest group of players, and I've been consistent saying that throughout. They were hurting. I think they were hurting because they knew how far they'd fallen in terms of the level of performance on Tuesday. That was easily for me the worst performance that we've had on this run in my time at the football club. I think that there's an element of guilt in that as well when you look at a travelling support coming on a winter's night to Dingwall and you've gave them nothing back for their investment to come to watch their football club. So I think that hurts them. What we go about it today is probably my approach becomes slightly different. It's really important that I simplify this because I do sort of pride myself with the staff on how much time we spend with the players and how much detail we put in, and we try and coach them on a basis of what we show in a video analysis. I've seen it a number of times that we kind of show videos and think, right, well that's going to solve all the problems. The players will realise where they went wrong and they'll know how to fix this. I do believe in the element on the part, but there is a slight change of approach for me, and it's that kind of short-term idea of we need to strip this back, we need to simplify it, because at this minute in time what I can see is that a lot of the detail that we're given isn't quite being processed and we're not quite actioning it. So from that we probably need to change the stimulus. We need to sort of shift things around a little bit. And again, that's when I assure people I don't just sit here and say I've conquered this, I know what I'm doing, and it's the players' fault and they're not acting on my message because I'm wonderful at what I do. That's certainly not the case. I make mistakes, I get things wrong, but what I do have to do is I have to get a reaction somehow. I need to change something somehow. The one thing I can't change an awful lot of is the team selection and who we're going to play, because we don't have too many options and who we're going to put out in that pitch. The numbers are low, they are low. But you know what, they were low at the start of the season in their last victory, which seems a long time ago against Hearts. We had very few players to pick from and very few options in our team because we had a lot of injuries and various things going on at that point as well. But we managed to come up with a result, so I still believe that's possible, and I certainly believe it's possible again on Saturday.
And how important is it then, obviously there's a lot of anger amongst the support, but that everyone is together this weekend?
Again, I can't control what people say. We've had some games here early in that what's been a poor run where you're level in a game and people stand up and they start having complaints and shouting. I was at St Johnstone and St Mirren last night, and Craig Levine's obviously just come in. Craig's managed to get a few good performances and results. Some of the shouts you hear are just they're mind-boggling for me, for somebody like me that is a bit of a purist of the game, that tries to weigh things up, that tries to show a kind of calm head and what's happening at your football club. They're mind-boggling, but again, people will tell you they pay their money, and some people want to come and hammer their own players and abuse their own players. That's where I go back to my earlier point. You need to be big enough to handle it. You need to be big enough to take it. We're never going to be able to get supporters coming into this stadium and verse them on what they can and can't say and how they're going to act and how they're going to behave. Some people support their club in a different way. I look at the support, the following that we had up in Dingwall. They were angry after the game, but you know what? For 90 minutes they supported their team. There was we could still hear them singing, could still hear them getting behind their team, and they've got every right at the end of the game to then go and voice their discontent. I have no objections to that, but I think sometimes what you have to probably allude to is sometimes people have to have an understanding that human beings sometimes will react a certain way to certain words and to certain actions and all the rest of it. And as much as we possibly can, as much as I can possibly stake that claim, I would urge everybody that comes here and wants to come here to support their team on Saturday to do exactly that. And you know what? See if at the end of it it's not good enough and it's not what they want, then that'll be a point, that'll be a stage where they can speak their mind and they can get after players. But you know, it is that aspect of you want as much support for the players, because when you get that, I think what people don't see is it definitely has a better effect on their mentality and their actions in games. And I think sometimes in the modern day, when that changes and when that kind of crosses a line and goes another way, then you can visibly see, if you stop for a second, you can visibly see the effect it can have on players. But again, how much control can I have on that? It's only me speaking with my opinion and my thoughts. You know, if people want to come and think that the best way to go is to abuse myself and the players, then that's absolutely fine. We're just going to have to go and try and deal with that. But I think when you look through the vast majority of the Motherwell supporters through my time, then there's been an awful lot of good support, an awful lot of good backing, and through those stages I think that the players have performed, and I think what we do is come away from Tuesday really knowing that we'd let them down, and we want to try and make amends for that.
Stuart, you was talking to Liam Kelly the other night after the game, and he obviously talked very highly of you, but obviously well aware that this run can't go on much further. You'll start to put you in danger. How do you get them to use that motivation but not be kind of affected by the pressure that kind of puts on them as well?
Good question. Listen, it's nice if players say good things about you. It's nice if players feel that they're in a position where everything at the football club set out how they want to work and how they want it to be. But I can't answer it. It's probably a player's question. You know, if I put it down to myself when I played, and I can only kind of flip that question and start to look at myself, I probably never looked for divine intervention from a manager. I never looked for much motivation from a manager. I never looked for too much in the way of direction. I genuinely didn't. But again, times have changed. I think that players now do require a lot of information. I think they do require a lot of guidance. And I've kind of tried to move in my coaching and management style with the times to try and give as much as I possibly can. And I don't know if that's just a way of life or how it goes, but I think ultimately we can look for excuses, myself included. We can point and look for excuses. I think all I can do, and what I will be looking to do over the next couple of days, is just to try and get the players in a mindset where they're just focused on their job, their game, their unit, who's playing beside them, their partnerships. That's really all we can focus on. You know, talking about myself or my own position and all the rest of it is kind of irrelevant when it comes to the game on Saturday during that 90 minutes. I think that, you know, you can come up with the best plan, and I think we've come up with a few good ones, and I think we've come up with plenty enough good detail in amongst that. But sometimes if you come up short and you have a poor performance, we can accept that with one or two in a group of 11. We can't have what we had on Tuesday, where it's almost every player is way short of the expected levels and what they've shown us in this football club through a stretch of time. So everything else that surrounds it, everything else that covers it, it ultimately comes down to you as an individual and how you're going to perform and how you're going to deal with what's going to be a difficult game. You know, I watched St Johnstone last night. They're well organised, they're harder to beat. So I think we just take all the surrounding subjects and all the surrounding topics out the equation, myself included, and I just think it comes down to those players and how they perform.
It's actually about corners. You mentioned it has been a bit of an Achilles heel. It's been 6 or 7 weeks, but it seems to be almost a whole game. Is that clearly you've been working very hard on it? But how do you now kind of broach that? How do you sort that out? Is it just maybe simplifying it, like you said?
Yeah, to the naked eye, you won't see that there's been changes in there as well. We've continued to try and change it. I feel that, you know, it's like a goalkeeper. If a goalkeeper makes a couple of mistakes, one single mistake, I've never believed in ever taking a goalkeeper out. A lot of people have that knee jerk, I need to take him out or throw somebody else in. I always think that it goes through a period of time, but what we have done is we've tried to chop and change little aspects according to who we're playing against and how they set up for set plays. But the one fact is, and you know, I can say this openly because everyone will know it, and St Johnstone will come here and try and use it as an issue for us on Saturday, as we've conceded six goals from either first or second phase in corners, third phase I think it was even against Dundee, out the last 7 games. So that tells you a story. We've tried to rectify it, we've tried to change it a little bit. We'll try something else again on Saturday, we'll try and adjust it. But that's where I can speak publicly about that, because me thinking if I don't say that nobody's going to see it or nobody's going to understand it. It's there, but that's another issue that we need to step up and stand up and go against. But for me, that's a level of concentration, and then ultimately when anything comes into either our box or their box, it becomes a determination and desire to have an effect. Can I get the first touch on the ball, or can I stop my opponent getting on the end of it? And that's really how simple that comes down to, even though that we put loads and loads of layers on top of that, where we position players, how we're going to deal with it, what types of delivery they throw in, what movements players make. We do all of that. We spend so much time on it, sometimes too much time on it, if I'm being honest with you. But that just purely comes down to a desire and a concentration, that you're not prepared to give up your clean sheet. And just all too often recently we have been prepared to give up our clean sheet by either errors or just moments where we switch off.
Stuart, when you had that great run last season, do you draw on that at times like this to say to yourself, I can get this group through this?
I believe that, yes, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to park that, because I feel as if I spoke about it too much, and it comes to a longer period of time where you keep alluding back. You know, I can talk about how good we were at the start of the season, which we were first 4 games, 10 points. Can speak about the 3 games after that. I keep speaking about St Mirren, Rangers and Celtic. That's arguably, we lost those 3 games by the odd goal, and that's arguably 3 of the best performances. And I've spoke to a lot of people that have been about this football club for a long period of time, a lot of years, that know something about football, that are passionate about their football club, and a lot of people allude to that even those 3 defeats was some of the best performances and some of the best football they've seen. That's all brilliant. That was over a stretch of 7 games at the start of the season. The next 7 games haven't been particularly good for us. So what we need to do is just look at the here and now. I can't draw too much on what's happened previously. The small shoots to recovery come immediately. You know, we've tried aspects where we looked at what we've been good at. You know, we work off a similar game model, game plan of what we're looking at. I need to stress this. I need to strip all of that back, because that's something that we could hopefully eventually work towards. For the here and now, we actually need to go and try and see if we can perform well and give ourselves a chance to win a game of football. Try and break this cycle. Try and break the mood in the place. Try and raise the confidence around about the place. And as I say, that the only route for me at this minute in time is to really simplify that. And I know we've done the endless hours of work. I know we've done the analysing ourselves and the opponents bit, but I think that we just really need to strip that back and make the message as simple, as clear and precise for the players that possibly can be, so that they don't get lost in their own thoughts on a game on the pitch. And I spoke about it after Tuesday. It's so important what happens between the ears, and just now that thinking isn't particularly clear for us, and we have to try and make that a little bit sharper.
Is there an element of frustration that you're having to take it back to basics at this stage of the
Yeah, because it isn't my belief. It's not exactly what in tune with what I think as a coach and a manager. So you know, if I was to start afresh with something tomorrow, I would do it exactly how we've done it at this football club, because again, it's what I believe in. But you find yourself in a situation where I think that sometimes you have to react to what's going on round about you, and you have to react to what the results are and what the mood is and what the feel is, and how the players that listen, I rely on football players, the supporters rely on football players, the club rely on football players. That's always what it comes down to, the people that take to the pitch. And I have to try and find a way to help them as much as I possibly can, not to keep hammering them, not to keep putting them down, not to keep telling them what they're doing wrong. We have to try and find a really quick fix to see if we can put things in place that gets us a result.